quarter of a century spent mapping 2.5 million genotypes and 350,000 complete genome sequences to snap what we might consider a giant collective molecular selfie. This is what the researchers of Decode Genetics did, the company of the Amgen Group that has been analyzing in detail the characteristics of the Icelanders' DNA since the 19th. On the occasion of the celebration of 25 years of genetic research, Medicare TV was in Reykjavik to visit the genetics laboratories and interview its founder, Professor Kari Stefansson, who before starting Decode Genetics was a professor of neurology, neuropathology, and neuroscience at Harvard University and director of neuropathology at the Beth Israel Hospital in Boston. Here's what he told the Medicare TV microphones. You mapped the human genome of the most Iceland population, okay, which has very particular, specific characteristics, also environmental, okay. In which way do you think that this will benefit the rest of the world?
You see, Icelanders are a reasonably good animal model for Homo sapiens. We are very similar to people all over the world. And it's interesting when we are studying human diversity, which is basically looking at the subtle differences between individuals and between populations, we have to keep in mind that most of who we are, we share. We are the same species, we are subjected to the same diseases. So, when we have discovered a mutation in a gene that predisposes to a disease, it always predisposes to diseases, the same disease in other populations. There may be subtle differences, but they are always very subtle. So, remember, in the year past, the way in which people tried to figure out mechanism of disease was to work with animal models, work with mouse models, work with monkey models, etc. And we indeed, in Iceland, the Icelanders, we are a much better animal model for Homo sapiens.
Human Genome Project versus Iceland Genome Project, okay? What are differences and how do you think that your information could be shared or integrated?
The Human Genome Project that you're referring to was the project to sequence one genome. All right, it was to sequence the first genome, and that was basically an international collaboration that finished about 2003. Now we have here, just in Iceland, we sequenced the entire genome of about 350,000 people, which is the largest number of human genomes that has been sequenced anywhere in the world. And what we are doing by sequencing large number of people with all kinds of diseases and all kinds of versions of good health is that we are studying the differences between people. The Human Genome Project gave us a reference genome. We are looking for the departures from the reference. We are looking for the things that are different in people who have particular diseases from the rest of the population. So that is basically the task. And basically the heavy lifting done here at Decode is done by mathematicians who are mining data, very large amount of data, on sequence, on diseases, on proteome, on transcriptome, etc.
Could you explain in a very easy way how to use the study of human diversity to drive that drug discovery and development?
The way in which you use the study of human diversity in this case, if you take, let's say, heart attack, we are studying heart attack, and how do we shed light on the nature of heart attack by studying human diversity? In this case, we would be studying the difference in the risk that people have of developing heart attack. And then we take the group of people who has the highest risk of heart attack, and we ask the question, what do they have in common? What is the biochemical difference between these people and the people who have little risk? And once you find that biochemical difference, then you can, which is usually because there is a protein that is made by a gene that is either produced in too much amount or too small amount, or there is a mutation in it that prevents it from doing its job, etc. And once we have found that protein, then that protein becomes the target of the drug that you try to develop. And this is a fairly effective way of finding the mechanism that is abnormal and finding a way to correct the abnormality.
Do you think that one day we will have available genomic or genetic pills?
No.
Or therapy based on genetics that will be available for the most people, or just for an elite, for the rich ones?
You see, now you're not asking a scientific question, but a political question. Do I think that we will get rid of healthcare disparity in the future? I certainly hope so. I think that it is completely unacceptable to have scientific discoveries made, and on the basis of that, drugs discovered to treat and prevent disease and not make it available to the rest of the world. We basically have to fight for making all of these advances made available to everyone who needs it. Otherwise, we are not living up to the definition of what is my definition of society. Because what makes a group of people who live together into a society? In my mind, it is the willingness to live up to certain minimal standards when it comes to the living condition of all people. One of them is that you don't let people just die out in the wild. You provide them with healthcare, right? Yeah. And you don't have good healthcare for some and bad healthcare for others. Unfortunately, there is a very substantial disparity when it comes to healthcare. One glaring example of that is how healthcare in Africa is bad. We have incredible number of people in Africa infected by HIV, and there are drugs in existence to contain HIV, and they are not made available to the masses in Africa, and that is really sad.
How machine learning and artificial intelligence is helping you?
Artificial intelligence is basically, or machine learning is just a set of methods that allow us to systematically go through data and look for commonality between data on people with specific diseases or specific appearance of images, etc. It's just a set of methods. They are not revolutionizing our ability to do our work, but they help. And they have gradually begun to help more and more.
Do you have some Italian collaboration? Do you know in Italy we have Sardinia, which is a very specific cluster?
Yes, I know of the efforts done in Sardinia. Yeah. There's one of my colleagues who now works at Regeneron was involved with Sardinia. Gonzalo Abscesses was one of the scientists working there. We have had some collaborations in Italy, not an awful lot of them, but we had collaborations on several diseases with Italian scientists. But Italy has not been one of the countries where we have had the biggest collaboration. The biggest collaboration is with Denmark, then with Norway, Sweden, Finland, Great Britain, United States. We have had collaborations with China, Japan.
Why not in Italy now?
That's just a coincidence. It has to do with just running into people. We have collaborations in Italy, but they are not.
Do you remember some center in Italy with which we are now collaborating?
I don't remember specific places, but there's there's an awful lot of opportunities for collaboration, and I'm sure we will collaborate more with Italy in the future, because we haven't established so many collaboration yet. Yeah.
Okay. Last, actually, how is the potential for genomics to empower a new prevention first approach to population health?
You see, this potential has been obvious for a long time. There has been reluctance on the behalf of healthcare authorities to adopt this preventive approach because it requires investment of money today that is not going to benefit society until later on. And politicians have a tendency to be short-sighted. If they are going to invest large amount of money in something, they want it to be obvious before the next elections, right? Yeah. And the preventive approach to medicine is going to turn in dividends, long time down the road.
But what do you think about the genetic tests that are in many countries, laboratories are proposing to people in order to know if they are food intolerance, or maybe, what do you think? Is it
that is mostly just utter, thorough, unadulterated bullshit. All right? There's nothing in it. There's nothing in it. We know extraordinarily little about the genetics of food intolerance. There's not much known about it. The only one that we truly know about is the lactose intolerance. The rest of it is bullshit.
There are most genetic tests for the sport performance, for the ageness. This is just a commercial.
Yeah, listen to me. Listen, don't piss me off. Yeah. There's nothing in this. There's nothing in this.
Okay, no.
It's not serious.
I agree. I just would like
I mean what I said.
Okay.
You can test for lactose intolerance, and that is real. The rest of the food intolerance test that they have is bullshit. And to think that you can identify people's ability in sports by genetic test, that's absolutely thoroughly wrong.
The last one, can you give me some information about your person? I mean, do you live here in Reykjavik? If you like some sports?
I live in Iceland.
Yeah.
I've lived in Iceland since I was born here. I stayed for 20 years in America. I was professor at the University of Chicago. I was professor at Harvard Medical School. I came back here in 1996. I live in Reykjavik. My favorite hobby is to read books.
Wow.
All kinds of books, mostly fiction.
Yeah.
I like to read novels. I like to read poetry. I breed horses for hobby. I've been breeding Icelandic horses for a long time. But besides that, I'm an extraordinarily boring person.
How old are you?
I'm 73 years of age.
Okay.
I was born in the first half of last century. I was born in 1949.